solution. And that's what I would say to somebody.
So the problem is already manifested, and whether you choose to ignore it, because there are signs, even sometimes in life, we get signs. You meet somebody, and something deep down inside of you tells me this is not the person for you, but you go on a few more dates, you go on a few more, and by the third, you be like, all right, we got to end this, because this is not going to work. You had signs that you saw early on, and so sometimes there's an awakening. I call it where a light bulb goes off. You see a sign that maybe something's wrong. What's the attitude? If you see something,
say something.
Say something. And so you're saying we can call you, and we can call anyone at Kids Escaping Drugs Campus. Again, the numbers on the bottom of your screen. Please pick up the phone and give them a call. You have children. You've got grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors, friends, cousins, somebody that knows somebody who's hurting. You'd be surprised that maybe one of your loved ones will come to you, and maybe theirs is not the problem, but they know someone that's in crisis. How do you respond when someone is in crisis? I think that's important. So when someone is in crisis, how we respond rather, says a lot about us. What would you say, how would you describe Erie County, Western New York, because now we see there's a crisis, and how has our response been lately in your eyes?
Well, we have this opiate task force. I think that our response is better than it's ever been. But like with anything else in life, it's not perfect, and it can only get better. But we've started it. Unfortunately, we started it very late. But I believe we can get to the end of this.
So there's an opiate task force, and is it county or statewide?
It's in Erie County.
Erie County
Yep.
Opiate Task Force. Now, do they partner also with some of the state agencies, or primarily it's because the county municipality is spearheading it?
The county's spearheading it, but certainly there's people, from state agencies and county agencies that are on the task force with us. There's all different walks of life and all different professions, from treatment to some of the churches. I believe we have funeral directors, so it's all different people coming together trying to figure this out.
Wow. So listen, the information is available to you. You want to partner with the task force. Maybe you say, well, I don't have a lot of time, but I've got some money. They can use your money to help, fight this addiction. Or maybe I don't have money, but I've got time. Well, you have something to give. You got time, talent, or treasure. Maybe you can volunteer. Maybe you have seen enough brokenness in your life that you don't want to see anyone traumatized and damaged, like maybe you've seen someone become because they are in a lifetime spiral, downward spiral of active addiction. We've got so much information. Jody, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being on the battlefield for at least 31 years, fighting for our children. There's a scripture in Nehemiah, I believe it's Nehemiah 2:14. It says, fighting for the families. It's one of my go-to scriptures. It's fighting for the families. God gave Nehemiah an assignment. Nehemiah, go back to your city that you came from and rebuild the walls. Rebuild the walls, but I want you to start with the families and go to each person's house and tell them, listen, you're not just fighting for the city, you're fighting for your family. And when you make it personal, you're fighting for your daughter. I'm the youngest of 9. I've got 6 sisters and 2 brothers. I got 2 daughters and a wife, and I've learned to fight for the underdog. And so when something is precious to you, there's nothing you wouldn't do for someone that's hurting and broken. And so I want to say to you who are watching, you got to get in the fight. There's no neutral observers here. There's no UN task force. You got to get in the fight. Either you are a part of the solution or you are a part of the problem. And I would say to you, get up or get out, because we've got a family that we got to fight for, and we're fighting for the human family. We've got sons and daughters whose lives have been radically altered. And again, I want to thank you for all that you do. I want to thank you for being on the front line battling for our families. Thank you so much, Jody.
Thank you for having me.
Honored to be with you. We've got some great information yet coming. We want you to hear a wonderful public report clip. Elder Larry Wiggins, New York State Troopers, O'Callahan and Campanella. They've got some information I want you to observe.
Let's talk a little bit about the opiate problem.
That's a big problem. That's something that you're seeing in all walks of life. That's not something that's just this specific area of where you live or this socio-economic, background. This is everybody. Heroin is the usual drug of choice. It's cheap. It's readily available. And a lot of people, to get that high or to get that, extra kick, because, you eventually grow an adaptation to most of these narcotics, they're adding what's called fentanyl. Originally, that was a pain compliance patch, but now there are some chemists in China and other places who have derived a way to make it into a powder or substance forms. So I don't think people realize how potent it is. 6 grams, little individual grams of salt size pieces is enough to kill a person, whether it be by touching it, ingesting it, or inhaling it.
Touching it.
Touching it. If you had a little bit on you and I went to brush it off, I would be done. It would kill me that quick.
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
that lethal. And so what happens is you have a lot of these people that are looking to sell their item or their drug, and they'll add a little bit of that in there, just enough for it to be a great high, but maybe just not enough to kill you. But depending on how the compound mixes, you might get the lethal dose, depending on where that falls into place when the grains of sand, so to speak, or grains of salt mix with the chemicals or the heroin. So what that originally does is it compounds the original drug, which is heroin, 100 times greater.
Wow.
That's kind of what that fentanyl does. So with that epidemic, we have a lot of people getting hooked on, maybe it was a car accident and they took, hydrocodone, but now those pills stop because now the medical field with, different
Monitor,
doctors,
yeah.
they monitor, you can't go get a prescription of medication here and then go to this doctor and try and do the same thing. They're all networked in. So a lot of times the medication stops sooner than the person that the addict would like, and so they result or go to another means.
Okay. Now, well, just to touch it, I'm surprised. So what about Narcan training? Do you do that in the schools?
Well, we get trained for that. Police officers, firefighters, EMS, all get trained so that should we encounter somebody that is overdosed on an opiate, we would administer that, and it reverses or it stops the effect of the opiate. So it doesn't work with other classes of drugs, but for that opiate intoxication and overdose, it will kind of reverse the effects of the opiate, and in many cases has saved a lot of lives.
Another reason why I brought that up, there was someone I used to work with that I happened to run into, and she was always talking about her son being hooked on drugs, and she would always say, oh, we're just waiting for the police to come to let us know that he OD'd. And so sure enough, I ran into her, and I said, how's the family? And she said, you didn't hear? I go, no, hear about what? And she said, her son, he died. I'm like, oh, my God, from the he OD'd at McDonald's when it was in March, and everyone was ODing. And for some reason, we got on this subject about Narcan. And she said, well, you know what, Elder? We did give him Narcan before, and when he came out, he was enraged because we blew us high.
Yeah.
And that's very common for us, actually, when we train, when we administer Narcan and the fentanyl, or if there's fentanyl in there, a lethal dose of fentanyl, the Narcan will not bring the person back.
Okay.
But if it's just a clean enough heroin and it does bring them back, they're coming back fighting. Because they're right out of it, the drug's right out of their system, and there's a good chance that they're going to come out of something swinging fists.
They're going to feel the withdrawal symptoms.
Right,
It
immediately.
puts them into withdrawal.
What is the youngest person have you been involved with that was on opiates or heroin?
Well, for me, in our positions, we're not actually answering the calls at homes and things like that where our patrols would be. In schools, it's happened in the early teens that I'm aware of, and unfortunately sometimes kids come into contact with drugs that maybe
could
were
be a
carelessly left around, and the kids being curious get into it and act totally accidentally.
It could be a parent, it could be an older sibling, maybe leave some of this stuff around. Like I said, a lot of this stuff by touch is all it takes. Depending on the drug. So you might be a child or a young adult and not realize what it is and just touch it. It's gotten to the point now where our canine narcotic dogs get, the officers that are the handlers get trained in Narcanning their dogs.
Really?
Because a dog obviously uses its
Right.
nose to detect and distinguish the drugs or the location. And if it's in a powder form and it's open and it's airborne and that dog inhales that, the dog will OD.
Wow.
That's how lethal this stuff is.
Wow, had no idea it was that lethal. And so that's a huge problem. So I'm sure that's why, you know, some of the legislation coming down with some strong penalties for even the drug dealers. I mean, they're offering $2,500
Yeah, you saw
in
that,
Western,
right.
yeah.
The
and
Crime Stoppers
yeah.
with the Erie County DA's office.
As
Yep.
soon as I saw that, I told my wife, "Whoop, there's gonna be a lot of people going to jail now." You know, 2,500, but I understand.
They're trying to get convictions for murder for drug dealers that have sold fatal doses.
Right.
Where you referred to March of last year when we lost, I think, 7 people in
Yeah.
a 24-hour
Yep,
period.
yep.
In
That's
Erie
what I'm
County, it
talking
was
about.
And
fast. Yep.
and that was because fentanyl was involved there. And unfortunately, when somebody, for an addict, when they find out that a dealer has sold a fatal overdose to somebody, well, we would think, well, you kind of back away from that dealer.
Right.
But for an addict, it's the opposite. They believe that, hey, well, that dealer has something good and strong.
That
It
will
may have
kill
killed
you.
that person, but
I'm stronger.
But they feel stronger and more experienced, so they want to try to see if, for a drug user, they're always trying to recreate their initial first high, and they never kind of can really find that again. So they will seek out stronger dose to see if, hey, maybe we'll find that again.
Wow. You know, and I'm just blown away because here's something you know that might kill you, but you're still willing to do. It's like a rat and rat poison.
That's an addiction.
Yeah.
That's what an addiction is.
That's the addictive mind would think, like, the normal person would be like, that is completely crazy, that could
Right.
kill you, you're going to stay away from it. But the addict doesn't look at it like that. It's like a role reverse, like John had mentioned. They're like, well, that guy died because I'm a better user. That's never happened to me. I'm stronger than that person. But I want the high that could potentially give me. So they'll chase that.
And not even realizing, come on, that person that's mixing it up is not a chemist, I would imagine.
Yeah,
You know, so
I don't think
yeah.
there's any chemistry degrees out there doing that.
Wow. Wow, the public report. Listen, if you want to see this full interview, it's going to air this Saturday at 2 p.m. only on WNYB TV, Total Christian Television. It's the public report. You don't want to miss it. 2 p.m. Saturday morning, Total Christian Television, WNYB TV. Wow, what a wonderful piece of information that's available to us. And we need you here at Total Christian Television. We need volunteers. We'll train you. We'll teach you. We'll pray with you. We'll show you how to run cameras, how to operate the telephones. Whatever you need to do, we need you to assist us. We're on the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are here for you. We need to recruit you for production, floor directors, camera operators. We need you to come by and keep us company, because sometimes we need to know that somebody else is watching what we do and they appreciate the value of Total Christian Television. Well, we got another segment to this wonderful special edition of Celebrate. We got two tremendous frontliners on this war against opiate addiction. Please welcome to Celebrate Corey Neiman and Reverend James A. Lewis III. Well, Corey, welcome to Celebrate. We're honored to have you and Reverend Lewis. I told somebody there's nobody that don't know Reverend James A. Lewis unless you got your head in the sand, because all jokes aside, you have been working, it seems like your entire lifetime, to help people whose lives have been disenfranchised because of bad decisions, bad choices, or just bad people in their lives. And Corey had a chance to meet you, and I want you to share with us about this opiate crisis and how is the church combating this addictive disorder and behavior?
Well, I think for a long time the church has kind of stuck their head in the sand on the subject, quite frankly, because it was, more of an inner city problem, or it was more of a, not inside our church kind of a mentality. And I think over time we kind of abdicated our role to the social sciences and the medical fields. And I do believe that, we all play a part in this, but if we're not willing to kind of break the stigma and start speaking about the spiritual component to this, then, I feel like we're just chasing after symptoms. And so part of my journey has been to educate churches and to educate, even being a member of the opioid task force, even the state and local agencies, to the fact that the virus is really in the spirit. It's an identity crisis. It's a crisis of faith, and it just manifests itself through suffering. And I think man, in a lot of ways, doesn't understand what suffering is designed to do, and so we want to escape it and medicate it and just kind of eliminate it from the equation. And I think in the medical field, they kind of fell into that idea too, that let's just take suffering out of the equation.
Let's take the pain away.
Yeah.
Let's take the pain away. And pain, I was always taught, pain was an indicator that something was wrong. You got a fever because something had invaded your body, and your body's trying to fight the fever. And so there would be pain as a result of the fever. So you need to identify its root cause of the issue. And so as a life recovery coach, I love how that kind of rolls, because it's life.
Yeah.
And life has its ups, its downs, its challenges. And you need someone to walk you through this thing called recovery. So, Reverend Lewis, what do you know about people in recovery? Have you had any experience dealing with people, recovering addicts, recovering any type of addictions? I'm just messing with you, please.
I know you're messing with me, Superintendent. Last 30 years, a lot of people don't realize, but the Erie County Miracle Center is a huge detox and rehabilitation center, and we work with Horizon and so many different people to help put lives back together again. And it's amazing how things have changed. I brought my Time magazine with me because in the March issue, they dedicated one just to opioid diaries and issues that are affecting the pandemic. I heard you say pandemic. It's no longer an epidemic because it's reached outside of the east side and the west side of most of our cities, and now it's in suburban areas. And we have so many people that are dealing with so many different types of addiction, and the drug has changed so drastically. It's nothing like the drugs that we knew. I know you never did nothing wrong, but
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Just
experimented
let that